Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to create a very simple 2D platformer in HTML and JavaScript. It's going to be a simple game that you can build on, but you're also going to be able to share it with your friends. So if you're interested in learning how to build this, stay tuned.
Okay guys, so this is the end result of what we're going to be building today. We have a player sprite. The player is able to jump. It's not able to go through platforms, but it is able to jump on them. This is just like the beginning stage of a platformer that you can feel free to build on and make even better. And yeah, you can also die. So there you go. And yeah, stay tuned if you want to learn how to build this. Okay, so this is the tutorial on how to make a 2D platformer game on as a web application. There's a lot of different ways to make 2D platformers. Most aren't going to be done in JavaScript. There's usually game engines for that. There's Pygame. So this isn't necessarily the best way to make a 2D platformer. It is, however, the best way to make a 2D platformer that you can easily share with other people. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And uh, starting off, I made a new folder here. That's going to be our project folder. And in this project folder, what I have prepared so far is just uh, two pictures of our character that we're going to be using for this tutorial. Um, it's the it's a sprite sheet, so it's basically a picture of our character in different poses. And really, the only pose we're only ever going to be using is just the character standing or the character moving in one direction or the other. So this is the character moving in one direction. This is the character moving in another direction or in the other direction. We're not going to have separate animations for our character jumping, for our character falling down, anything like that. Obviously, this is just a tutorial on how to make the simplest platformer game. You guys can always build on this code later. Another thing that we're going to have ready is just three pictures of clouds with a transparent background that we're going to be using, and that's basically it. Also, since this is a tutorial on how to make a platformer with no knowledge required, um, you will need to have some programs installed in order to make this work. You should probably have an IDE installed or some sort of code editor. What I use is Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever you want. Just make sure if you don't know what to do, just go ahead and Google Visual Studio Code. Go ahead and install that. And yeah, that's basically all you need there. Yeah, that's basically, well, technically that's the only thing you need. This is how I'm going to be opening my Visual Studio Code, but that's not the only way to do it with git bash. So you type in code dot and that opens up our project here. Now in this project we have our folder with our graphics ready to go. What we also want to create here is our index.html. That's going to be our HTML page here. You need to create a basic mockup for the page. You can go ahead and just copy this if you don't know what to do. That shortcut I use was an extension, I think. But yeah, go ahead and just copy all of this if you're not sure what to do. I'm going to give this page a name. I'm just going to call it hold numlock 2D platformer. And that's basically it. Now, another thing we're going to need in this is we're going to need JavaScript. So we're going to be creating an app.js file. And this app.js file is just going to connect to our HTML page. And the way to do this is just put it right at the end of our body inside of a script tag. Just like this. Okay, so here our script tag is going to have a source, and the source is going to be app.js. And that's basically that. And just for now, I'm just going to have an h1 here. I'm going to write game here. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to our app.js and I'm going to console.log a string just to make sure that that everything is nice and connected, that our HTML is connected to our JavaScript. Now I'm going to look at my page here. The way I did that was with something called Live Server. So I went and clicked open with Live Server. That's an extension you can install. Just look up Live Server by clicking on this extensions button and install that, and you're going to be ready to go. So yeah, this is our page here. That's going to end up being our game. But what we need to do is we need to click on inspect and click on console, and that's where we're going to see our string here that says connected. That means that our JavaScript is connected to our HTML side. Okay, now most of what we're going to be doing here is going to happen in an HTML tag called canvas. This isn't going to be a tutorial on canvas, on the element canvas. So this element allows you to do all kinds of different things. But what we're going to be doing with this canvas is we're going to be building a game. So if you want to learn more about Canvas, I might make a tutorial on that specifically. So there's our Canvas element there. If we look at our page, there's nothing there. Canvas doesn't really, blank canvas element doesn't really show anything, but it's here. There it is. That's the canvas element, and you can see it. It's like 300 pixels times 150 pixels, so it's quite small. But yeah, there we go. We have it here, and now what we want to do with that canvas is we want to make it full screen. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a style section here, and in this style section we're going to style our canvas. So we're just going to say that our canvas is going to be margin of 0. We're going to give it yeah, that's basically it for that. We're also going to say that our body is going to also have a margin of 0. So let's look into that. Okay, now our canvas is hitting the border of our page. There's that. Okay, now that's all we're really going to do on the CSS side. All other styling is going to happen in our JavaScript, in JavaScript land, basically. So what we're going to be doing first in our JavaScript is we need to select our canvas. And to do that, we're going to say const canvas. It's going to be a constant. And const canvas is equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is going to be canvas. And after selecting that, we're just going to console.log canvas. Now let's go back to our console. There's our canvas right there. So we've successfully selected it. Another thing that we want to do with our canvas is we want to make sure that it's spanning the entire height and width of our screen. So in order to do that, we've got to say canvas.height is equal to window.inner height, and canvas.width is going to be window.inner width. Now let's check our page now, and we can probably look that our canvas is spanning the entire screen. So that's good there. Now, another thing we might want to do is immediately give it some kind of background color, just to make sure that we actually are certain that it's spanning the entire width of our screen. So to do that, I'm going to be making a function here. You don't need to make this a function, but I will, because I'm going to want to reuse that function. Well, actually, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to want to reuse that function later on. So this function is, in this function, we're going to draw the background of our canvas on our canvas. But first, in order to be able to do that, we need something called context. So we need the context of our canvas. And to do that, we need to say something like C. So you can do CTX, but I'm just going to do C here. C for context. It's going to be canvas.get context, and our context is 2D. And there's our context there. If you're not sure what that does, if you're not sure what that is, I can just console.log C to see what that is. So it's just basically a canvas rendering context. If that doesn't make any sense to you, just know that this is something that we're going to be using to do basically everything with our game. So that's why I also called it C, because I don't want to have to type a long word every time. So C, and now I want to say that the fill style of our context, just for right now, is going to be blue. And now I want to say fill rect for rectangle, starting at 0 pixels width, 0 pixels width, 0 pixels height. That's where it's going to be starting, at the upper left corner of our page. And it's going to span the inner width and the inner height of our window. So that's it. Now you're not going to see anything yet because we never called this function. So let's call that function. And there we go. So that's our context there. That's our canvas there, technically. Now the background I want to use for our game isn't quite literally blue. It's going to be this hex code. That looks more like a sky blue to me. So there's that. Okay, so the next thing we want to do here is I want to draw the ground and like a platform for our character to jump on. Now, in order to draw the ground and the background, I'm gonna need to kind of define what our ground and what our background is going to be. So my ground is going to be an object, and this is where we're going to be defining all of the specifics about what our ground object is. So where does our ground object start? We're going to give it an x of 50 for now. We're going to say that it's going to have a y of 600. We're going to say that it's going to have a height of 256. All of these are pixels, by the way. So if you see 50, that's 50 pixels. If you see 600, that's 600 pixels. And I'm going to say that it's going to have a width of 1,500. So that's our ground here. That's how we defined it. And now I want to draw that ground. So I'm going to make another function for this. It's going to be called draw ground, and draw ground is going to be green for now, I guess. And we're going to say that it's going to start at ground dot x. This is going to be ground dot y. This is going to be ground dot width, and this is going to be ground dot height. There we go. Now our draw ground function is ready to go, and we're just going to call it. And that's our ground there. There it is. Okay. Now I'm also going to do a similar thing and just like create a small little platform that our character can jump on. We're going to say that the X of our platform is going to be 450. We're going to say that this is 370. Our height of our platform is going to be 256. And the width of our character is also, let's say 1,000 just for now. And I'm going to be creating another function that's going to be called draw platform. I could make a lot of these the same function, but just to make things super clear, I'm going to give all of these separate functions. So it's also going to be green, because why not? But all of this is going to say platform now. So there we go, draw platform. And now I'm going to call the draw platform function. And there's our platform. Okay, I think that's a little taller than I would want it to be. Doesn't quite look like a platform. So I'm going to change its height to be 64. Okay, that's better. That's better. That looks a lot more like a platform. There we go. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is right at the beginning of our file is I want to load up all the images I'm going to need for here. Yeah, let's do that right at the very top. I guess we don't need this connected anymore. So I'm gonna say player image, or let's call it player sprite sheet. So player sprite sheet is going to be a new image. This image source, oh, hold on, not the image source. Player sprite sheet dot source is going to be graphics. Don't forget this, yeah, dot slash graphics slash sprite sheet. There we go. We're going to be doing the same thing for our sprite sheet that's flipped. I'm just going to call it player sprite sheet flipped. And this is just going to say, oh, okay. Oh, also, by the way, this needs to be sprite sheet dot png. Can't forget the extensions, png. And this is going to be sprite sheet left dot png. And the last thing we want to do is we want to load up our cloud images, and we're gonna load them up as separate images. So cloud image is the first cloud image right here. I just called them one, so it's going to be slash graphics slash clouds slash one.png. And we're going to be doing the same thing for the two other clouds. Cloud image, I guess I'm just going to call them cloud image 2, cloud image 3. This is going to be 2.png. This is going to be 3.png. And after all of this, I'm just going to go ahead and console.log all of these. So player spreadsheet flipped. What else? Cloud image 2, cloud image 3, and there are our images. We can see them. There's the source, and yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's it. Now, in order for us to be able to draw these, we're not going to be doing things the way we were doing it up until now. We're going to be creating a game loop. Everything that's ever going to be happening inside of our game is going to be happening inside of a game loop. And this is a function that's going to be running all the time. I'm just going to call it game loop. And here I'm just going to console.log loop, just so you can see that it's how much that it's basically running all the time. And in here, I'm just going to say request animation frame game loop. So this is almost like a while loop type of thing. In Pygame, you would do this with a while loop, but this is just going to keep calling the game loop function over and over again. And so you're going to be seeing this console.log loop all the time. So let's see. Let's refresh. Oh, I never called a game loop. So right at the end of everything, I'm going to call game loop. And there's loop going. See? 150, 250. There we go. Okay. So now all of our drawing is going to be happening inside of this game loop from now on. Technically, since our game isn't going to be scrollable, we don't really need to make all of this happen inside the game loop, but just I'm going to make it happen there anyway, just so we are clear here. So I'm going to call all of these in here. So they're not happening. They're not happening outside of the game. Right now, they're happening inside of the game loop, which means that all of these functions here, draw background, draw ground, draw platform, they're all happening all the time. But that basically means that we're drawing an awful lot of backgrounds, an awful lot of grounds, and an awful lot of platforms. So we need to also remove whatever we're doing. Before we draw anything, we need to remove whatever there was on the screen before that. So we're going to say c.clearRect 0, 0. This is the way to clear everything from your canvas, by the way. 0, 0. And then we're going to say the width is going to be window dot inner width, and the height is going to be window dot inner height. And that's basically it. Things are going to look the same way as they were up until now, but under the hood, you know that technically this is removing everything that we drew, and these things are drawing them again, basically every frame. And the frame speed is going to completely depend on the speed of your browser, so or the speed of your device. So the speed of the browser on the device in question. So okay, so that's it. Now we have those clouds there. So now would be a good place to draw them. Now the way to draw these clouds, we're going to be creating another function. I'm going to call it draw clouds. And just for now, what we're going to be doing inside of this function is we're going to just draw the first cloud. And then later we're going to change this. We're going to change this a little bit. Okay, so we're going to say c.drawImage. And the image that we're going to be drawing is going to be our first cloud image. We're going to give it a position of 50. We're going to say that it's going to have a vertical position of, say, 100. We're going to say that the width of the image is going to be twice as large as what cloud image's width is. So we're going to say cloud image dot width times 2, and the same thing for the height. Cloud image dot height times 2. Okay, so let's look at what we have now. Oh yeah, we never called it. So draw clouds needs to be called after draw background, because first we're going to see the background, then we're going to see the clouds. And there's our cloud right there. Okay, awesome. So things are moving along. Now, I also want to animate our clouds, so I want to have our clouds kind of slightly drifting. So in order to do that, I'm going to be creating our clouds as a list of objects. So basically a list of objects, and they're going to have basically a position and a width and a height, and that's well, the width and the height is technically the width and the height of the image, so just the position then. So here, I'm just going to give them a position, which I don't want to have all of my clouds have the same position all the time, so I'm going to give them a random position. So we're going to say math.random, which is an inbuilt JavaScript function, math.random, and I'm going to multiply this by window.innerWidth. Now, why am I multiplying this by window.innerWidth? Well, because math.random basically gives us a number from 0 to 1, a decimal from 0 to 1, and then if we multiply this with the width of our window, that means that it's going to end up somewhere on the width of our window. And we're going to say the same thing for y, math.random, this time not multiplied by window.innerHeight. And I'm going to want to divide this up by 2 because I want my clouds to be in the upper screen. Upper half of the screen. So that's the first cloud, and well, basically all the clouds are the same way. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So those are our 3 clouds. There we go. Okay, so now inside of our draw clouds, I want to draw a cloud image that's going to be happening inside of a for loop. So we're going to say that for let I equals 1, let I equals 0, while I is smaller than the length of our clouds list. So we're going to say clouds.length, increment I by 1 every time. So inside of this for loop, which is going to be 3 loops long, we're gonna want to draw our clouds. So that's going to be 3 clouds. It's not going to be cloud image every time because we have 3 clouds, 3 cloud images. So I'm going to take those cloud images that we created up here, and I want to put them inside of a cloud images are going to be an array with our cloud images inside. Cloud image 2, cloud image 3. So taking all of our cloud images, putting them in an array, and that's our cloud images array. So instead of cloud image here, we're going to say cloud images I. Instead of 50 here, we're going to take the position of the first cloud or the second cloud or the third cloud, right? So taking the clouds array, taking the ith member of the clouds array, and then we're going to say dot x. Same thing for the next attribute, which is going to be, oh, messed up that, yeah. Clouds I dot y, and this is going to be this thing here. So here we're taking the images, height and width, and multiplying them by 2. Here we're taking the position of the clouds, of the cloud objects, and we're drawing this image. So let's refresh. Let's make that full screen. Well, let's make that full screen. So you saw that the place where we drew the cloud kind of changed. Let me see if I can remove that. And let's refresh one more time. We're still only seeing one cloud, which is strange. Let's see what that's about. So for clouds dot length. Okay guys, so I figured out what the mistake was. So this was supposed to say cloud image 2. This was supposed to say cloud image 3. I just changed the source of the first image. So yeah, there we go. Now, if we go ahead and refresh, we're going to see that we have 3 clouds painted on our sky at random places, So if we refresh, they're going to be appearing on different places every time, right? So yeah. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to give our clouds a little drift. So under our clouds object, I'm going to say that the cloud position, cloud position is going to be 0 pixels in the beginning. Now every time we draw clouds, I'm going to want to increase our cloud position by 1. And now the position of our clouds, instead of it being what we defined it as, we're going to add this. We're going to add our cloud position to it. I guess I should have called it cloud drift or something like that. I'm going to call it cloud drift because it's not cloud position really. Cloud drift. So it's going to be the position of our clouds plus cloud drift. And that's just for the x-axis. On the y-axis, it's going to stay same. So there we go. If we refresh, not only are they appearing in different places, they're also drifting a little faster than I would want them to. So I'm going to have this 0.5. Little better, maybe even a tad bit slower than that. 0.3. How's that? Yeah, that's a little better. I think I'm fine with that. So there we go. Okay, so now every time we refresh, our clouds are going to be appearing on random places. And yeah, that's it. Okay. So now the time has come to actually draw our player. Before we do that, I do want to define what our player object is going to be like. So just like we did with the ground and the platform, we're going to be doing with the player object as well. So a lot of this is going to stay the same. So I'm going to say that our player is going to have an x of 100. It's going to have a y of 400. it's going to have a height of 128, and same with the width, 128. Now we're also going to be giving some other things to our player too. Mainly, I'm going to want to see whether our player has some velocity on the vertical axis. So mainly, when he jumps, a player gets velocity on the vertical axis, on the y-axis. So I'm calling it Vy, and Vy in the beginning is going to be 0 because our player is going to be planted firmly on the ground. Or at least it's not going to, our player is not going to be going up. And I'm also going to want to know whether he's currently jumping. And in the beginning, that's going to be set to false. And I want to know which way he's looking. And I'm going to say that in the beginning, my player is looking to the right side. Right? So if he's looking right, then looking right is going to be set to true. If he's looking left, it's going to be set to false. And that's the main thing here, right? So that's our player right there. Okay. So now another thing I want to do is I want to draw my player. Now, in order to draw my player, I need to know which way my player is looking, because we're not going to be using the same spreadsheet in both cases. So in one case, if our player is looking right, in that case, I need to draw the player from the first spreadsheet. So I'm going to go c.draw image. I got a double dot. c.draw image, and this time I'm going to give it a little bit more arguments. I'm going to give this function a little bit more arguments to make this a little smarter. So the image that we're drawing is the player spreadsheet. Now, if I give it more arguments, the order of these arguments is kind of different from the way we did it here. So I can also give it which part of the image to take, right? So if our spreadsheet looks like this, I can tell we can tell our canvas, our context, which part of this image we want. So the next two arguments are going to be an x and a y. So it's always, for the y, it's always going to be 0. But for the x, we may start here, or here, or here, or here. All of these are 64 pixels. So because all of these are 64 pixels, it's going to be always some number times 64. The current frame that we're on times 64. So let me go up here. Under here, I'm going to say that the current frame is 0 in the beginning. So now, here I'm going to want to say that the part of the image on the x-axis that I want is the current frame times 64, which is the width of our sprite. But we can also make that a constant. We can also make that a variable as well. So let's say that const sprite width is 64. And let's also say that sprite height is 64 as well. So, but this is going to be the width of our sprite. I guess it doesn't matter. It's the same, but yeah, the width of our sprite times 64. This is going to be 0 because we only have one row of images. Now I want to say how big of a chunk of the image do I want? Well, the sprite height and the sprite width, right? So first the sprite width and then the sprite height. And now I want to tell my canvas context where to draw my image. Now the place where it's going to draw my image is going to be where our player is. So player.x, player.y, and how big should this image be? Well, it's going to be player.width and player.height. There we go. Okay, so that's drawing our image. Now this is if our player is looking right. If he's looking left, well, we don't need another if. I guess this could just be an else, because if he's not looking left, he's looking right. So else, oh wait, I lost. Yeah, okay. So this is going to be player spreadsheet flipped. Player spreadsheet flipped. And everything else is pretty much the same if I'm not mistaken. So we still don't see our player because we never called our draw player function. Hold on. Refresh. Oh wait. Okay, hold on. So this isn't even, I didn't even put, so let's, first of all, I do want to put all of this in a draw player function. So I'm gonna take all of this, put in a function called draw player, and put it all here. So this function is going to be drawing our player, but our player needs to be drawn here. So after we draw the ground and after we draw the clouds in the background. So now we see our player looking right, looking to the left. If player looking right is true, and my player is looking to the right. Did I flip that? Hold on. Did I? Spreadsheet left, player spreadsheet. Oh, okay. I did the same thing here. So this needs to say flipped. Okay, there we go. Now our player is looking the right way. Okay. Okay, so that's one thing. We have our background, we have our platform, our ground, and we have our player ready to go. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to be able to move my player. Now, in order to move my player, I need to give an event listener to my window. I'm going to be doing that here. So I'm going to say window.add event listener, and the event that I'm going to be listening to is going to be a key down event. So whenever any key is pressed, I'm going to want to know which key was pressed. So I'm going to console.log the key of our event. So I click the arrow. Oh, let me remove this console log that I have in my for loop. Okay. So, and that, refresh this, clicking to the right, arrow right, clicking to the left, arrow left. Also, you can see that when I click arrow left or arrow right, my screen is moving, or my screen is scrolling. So I want to stop that from happening. So I want to say that whatever is the default behavior of this event, I want to stop it. I want to prevent it. So that's not going to be happening anymore, right? So now I click arrow right, nothing's scrolling, so that's good. If I click space, then that's an empty space basically. So there we go. Okay, so now we need to take into account what key was pressed. So that's just a bunch of if statements. Let me format this a little bit. So if e.key is arrow right, if e.key equals arrow right, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move our player. We're going to say that player.x is going to increase by 5 pixels. If e.key is equal to arrow left, well, in that case, I'm going to want to do the opposite. I'm going to want to take our player and subtract 5 pixels from its x-axis. Well, let's test that. So yeah, I'm able to move our player a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. So that's good. Okay. And if my if what I did with the player is I made it jump, I hit the space bar, I want to take my player and decrease his velocity on the y-axis. So I want to I want to take my player and I want to make him jump. So in order to do that, I'm going to want to decrease his Vy. And I'm thinking of having that be a separate variable. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to say that our player is going to have jump speed, and the jump speed of my player is going to be 22 pixels. So I'm going to take away jump speed from my player Vy. There we go. And now if I press split, well, if I press space, nothing's going to happen because that doesn't really move our player. But I just want to make sure that this is changing. I'm going to say console.log player.vy. Okay. All good. Okay. So that's our player there. He's moving, but he's I want to make sure that I also account for the fact of someone holding the arrow right and holding the arrow left. And in that case, I need to keep track of what key is currently being pressed. So I'm going to create an object called keyState. And this object is just going to keep track of which keys are currently pressed. So I'm going to keep it open here, but then if whatever key is pressed, I'm going to add that as a key to my keyState object. So keyState e.key is going to be equal to true. Okay. Also, in order to see that what we did here was good, I'm going to console.log keyState every time I click a key on my keyboard. So I clicked arrow right and immediately that put an arrow right key in my object keyState. Now I'm going to click space and there's space there. Currently it's true. Now I also want to remove that when I stop holding my key. So I'm going to add another event listener, window.add event listener, and the event listener that I want to listen to now is key up. So when somebody stops holding the key, I want to remove it from my key state. I want to say key state e.key is equal to false. I hit right, error right is true. I hit left, error right is false, but error left was true. There we go. Okay. So all good. I can remove this console log. We don't need it for now. Now I also need to account for continuous movement. So I need to create a function for this that's always going to be checking which key I have currently pressed. So in this function, I'm going to say that if key state arrow right. So if the right arrow is currently pressed, that should also move my player. And I'm going to want to move my player by... I'm thinking of adding... I want to take this 5 and I want to have it be a variable. So just like jump speed, I want to have move speed. Move speed. Move speed is going to be 5 pixels. So instead of here saying +5, I'm going to say plus move speed. And this is going to be minus move speed. So if anybody wants to change this later, they can easily change it without having to change each individual 5. So here it's going to say move speed again. And if it's arrow left, then I'm going to want to take away move speed. And that's basically it. Spacebar is hit once anyway. So yeah, that's it. And we're going to want to keep looping through this. So I want to request an animation frame continuous movement. So this function is also always going to be running, basically. We're always going to be asking the context. We're always going to be asking, is our player currently moving or not? Is our user currently holding a key pressed or not? So there we go. Now we have a player. We can move him left and right. And yeah, that's good. Okay, so now what we also want to add to this game is I want to add some gravity to my game, because right now our player is still up in the air and he's floating because there's no gravity. So I want to add some gravity to my game. So I'm going to go ahead and here I want to say that gravity is going to be 1 pixel. And gravity is always going to be increasing. Every game loop, our gravity is going to be increasing. Well, technically not the gravity is going to be increasing, but the vertical velocity of our player is always going to be increasing because gravity is pulling our player down. So every game loop, our player is going to fall a bit. So every game loop, our player's y-axis is going to increase by players Vy, and our players Vy is going to increase by gravity every time. So there's our player. Every time we refresh, our player will continually fall off screen, because now we've created a world where gravity exists. So our player doesn't have anything to latch onto. He just keeps falling down, and he doesn't just fall down at a constant rate. Gravity increases his fall speed every loop by 1, so he falls down quicker and quicker. As he falls, his vertical velocity increases. So that's good. Okay. Now we need to stop our player from falling when he hits the ground, or when he hits any kind of platform, right? So to do that, we need to create a function, and I'm going to call that function collision detection, or detect collision. Detect whether our player right now is colliding with any of our objects. And if he is, then we're going to want to do something about it. If he's colliding with them, then we're going to want to do something about that. So for every rectangle inside of our array of rectangles that we can check, and that's going to be our ground and our platform, those are the only things that our player actually has, is able to collide with. Those are the only things we have. Our player can't collide with the clouds or anything like that. This is what we're going to be checking whether our player is colliding with. So if, and it's going to be a big if. So what we're going to be checking here is whether our player's position is inside of the rectangles of ground and platform. So is player's axis position lesser than rect.x plus rect.width, but that's not enough. Player.x plus the width of the player, so the right corner of our player dot width plus the width of our player is larger than rect.x, then player dot y plus player dot height, so the lower left corner of our player, is that larger than rect.y. And the last condition that needs to be fulfilled for there to be collision is whether player is lesser than rect.y plus rect.height. So if all of this is true, we're just going to console.log collided for now. Collision, actually. Let's do collision. Oh, I never called this function. So detect collision after we start the game loop, basically. So we're going to move our player by a bit. We're going to let gravity do its thing. I'm not seeing the collided. That means I made some mistake here. Okay, I think I found the mistake. So my mistake was I forgot to put the .y here. So now we're gonna see that when my player is falling, it's going to be colliding with with um, with one of the wrecks. So you're seeing the not there for the platform. So it is colliding with the platform, with the ground. So that's why we're seeing that collided there. I'm gonna return the gravity to be what it was. So there we go. Back to that. So now, oh, you can see for 18 frames there, our player was colliding with the ground, and then not anymore. So that's it. Okay. Let's refresh one more time. Awesome, beautiful. Also, one of our no, I think that's just this image of the size of the image. So I think that's fine. Okay, all good. Okay, so now, so what do we want to do if our player has collided with some of these rectangles? Well, it totally depends on whether our player was falling or not, whether our player's trajectory was upwards or downwards. So player.vy, if player.vy was less than 0, so that means our player was falling. Well, in that case, I want to say that our player y should be on whatever he was falling. So we're going to say it's going to be rect.y minus rect.height. And that should already stop our player from falling. To some extent. That's funny. Also, we need to stop our player's vertical velocity from increasing. So we got to say that player's vertical velocity is going to be 0. There we go. Okay. Oh, this should say player.height, not rect.height. Player.height. Okay, so there we go. So technically, if we want to be frank, like what's actually happening here is our player is continually falling. So gravity is always having its effect on our player. Every game loop, we are adding vertical velocity to our player y position, and then adding gravity to our player's vertical velocity. However, every time that happens, when our player collides with a rectangle from above, we're stopping our player from falling through. So technically, our player is always trying to fall down a pixel, and then we're stopping him. Else, if our player his vertical velocity is less than 0, let's just say else if player's vertical velocity is less than 0, if it's less than 0, then that means that our player's trajectory was up. That means that we want to stop our player from moving up anymore. So our player's y position is going to be rect.y plus rect.height. So we want to stop our player in its tracks, basically stop wherever our player was. And we want to say that our player's vertical velocity is going to be 0. I think we had 241. So our if is here, our else if is here. And then we need another y here. Okay. So there we go. We can move our player left and right. We can't really cause it. We can't cause it to jump. So that works now because we added gravity. So our player is jumping, and then gravity is stopping our player from going too far. Our gravity is bringing our player down. There we go. And collision detection stops our player from falling through the rectangle. It also stops the player from going through a platform. Some games don't have this type of behavior. In some games you have the player actually being able to go through the platform, but that's I guess you can make it however you want to make it. Also, we need to account for the fact that some part of our player's image is transparent. So in our collision, I'm going to want to take away some empty space that we have here. So player X, I'm going to want to add and subtract like 30 pixels here. And here I'm going to want to say plus 35 because there's at least a good 35 pixels. Yeah, I think that works fine. So there we go. Our player can jump. Our player can move left and right. We aren't animating our player yet. Hold on, let me see if we... so there's a little bit of bug there. Oh, there we go. We made it up there. Whoa. Oh, that's right. We're not stopping our player from endlessly jumping. That's another thing we got to do. That's so fun. There we go. Whoop, game over. Okay, so yeah, we also have to stop our player from jumping if we're already jumping. So if we're jumping, then we want to say that our player is jumping. We got to set that to true. So we only want to allow this if our player is not jumping. Player, if our player isn't jumping. So if it's not true that our player is jumping. And there we go. I can't, well, now I can't jump at all anymore, but the first time around I could jump, but I couldn't jump twice. So also, we need to stop this from being true when we hit the ground. So when we hit the ground, and we're falling down, I want to say that player dot is jumping is set to false. That's it. Let's see. I think I put it in the wrong one. And this one. There we go. So now we can jump, but I can't jump more than once while I'm in the air. And there we go. That's a little bug I'm seeing. I don't know if if I want to deal with that right now. So the next thing that we got to do is we got to animate this, and the best way to animate this is to change the current frame. And we want to change the frame when there's continuous movement to the left or to the right. So if our player is holding the right key, we're going to want to animate in either case. So I'm going to call the animate function that we're yet to make. Well, I guess I don't need to make a function for this. Well, let's think. Yeah, let's make a function. I think that's a little bit better. So we're gonna create an animate function, and we're gonna call that animate function if and if there's continuous movement. So if there's continuous movement, we're gonna want to animate our player. Same here. There we go. So let's make that animation function. Function animate. And what animate is going to do is it's just going to change the current frame of our character. So we're just going to say that current frame is going to be. Now this is a little bit of math here, but we're basically saying current frame plus 1 modulo. I'm going to want to create a variable here that's going to tell us how many frames we have here. So how many frames we have here in this sprite sheet. Let's keep that a constant because that never changes. Num frames is 8 in this case. So let's scroll all the way down to our animate function. Modulo number of frames. So this is going to make it so that our current frame is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. When it gets to 8, it's going to go back to being 0. That's basically what this is going to do. So now our player is animating. It's a little too fast. So I'm going to want to slow it down a tad. Now the best way to do that, and I'm basically going to want to half that. So I'm going to say that I'm going to create here a variable. I'm going to call it const animation frame limit, and I'm going to set the limit to be 1. And then I'm going to say that const, well, not const, I got to have that be a let animation frame current is going to be 0. So that every time this current hits the limit, that's where I'm actually going to do this little logic here that I'm doing. So here I'm going to say that animation frame current is going to be increasing by 1. And then I'm going to check if animation frame current is equal to my limit. Only then do I actually want to do this logic here. And that's going to kind of half take the speed of our animation and kind of slow it down. Oh, that totally killed it. Okay, so that killed it. Oh, I need to reset. I need to reset my my animation frame current. So every time it does hit, I need to reset my animation frame current. I think that's okay. I could probably even slow that down even more, but I think that's fine for now. Okay. Okay, so next thing, our player doesn't look left when we go left. So when we go left, here, we're going to say that player dot looking right is false. And when he looks right, is going to be true. There we go. Right, left, right, left, jump. And that's basically it. there you have it, folks. That's the tutorial on how to make a 2D platformer in JavaScript. You could go on to perfect this even more. There's still some bugs on when you hit this from the side. There's a little bit of teleportation going on. Also, as far as animation goes, the player keeps moving its arms even when he's jumping, which I still kind of find very cute. So I don't want to change that. But yeah, also when we stop the player, we're not always resetting the animation. So you can go ahead and perfect that as well. But yeah, that's kind of it. That's how you make a 2D platformer in JavaScript.
Thank you for watching that tutorial. If you found it helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you're interested in learning how to build any of these things, or just in learning JavaScript, web development, Python in general, make sure to contact me on the various platforms in the description.